This is Epic Book Recaps, a podcast that offers complimentary audio summaries of influential nonfiction books, making learning a smarter experience. The Moment of Lift by Melinda Gates. The notion of gender equality, when embraced and put into practice, can become a powerful instrument in the efforts to reduce the debilitating grasp of poverty on societies. In the year 1995, the life of a certain woman took an unexpected turn when she realized that she was expecting a child. Despite having no aspirations of becoming a stay-at-home mom, no one pressuring her to do so, and being at the top of her professional career, she made the abrupt decision to quit her job after the birth of her child and refrain from returning to the workforce. This decision was based solely on prevailing societal norms. Her spouse was understandably surprised by her sudden decision, given her previous dedication to her profession in the realm of computer sciences, which had seen her rise to a high-ranking position in a prominent tech corporation. This woman is none other than Melinda Gates. Over time, she came to the realization that her decision had been heavily influenced by entrenched gender stereotypes. As her children grew older, she co-founded a nonprofit foundation, committing herself to the mission of empowering women around the world, helping them understand their value and their right to make choices for themselves. As reported by the United Nations, women make up 49.6% of the global population. Considering this, it is clear that if every woman is given the opportunity to reach her full potential, the overall progress that could be achieved would be significant. During her many insightful conversations with women from diverse communities, Melinda was reminded of the excitement she used to feel as a child watching rocket launches. Her father, who worked as an engineer for the Apollo program, would often allow her to watch live broadcasts of these launches. She always wondered what made the rapid ascension of these space vehicles possible, and later applied this curiosity to social issues, pondering what could help communities rise just as swiftly. The answer came to her as she understood that the key was to include those who are marginalized or overlooked in society. In the words of Melinda Gates, every society says its outsiders are the problem. But the outsiders are not the problem. The urge to create outsiders is the problem. When women enjoy the same rights as men, they are able to access better education, fulfill their dreams, and improve the lives of their families and communities. Therefore, advocating for women's rights is an indispensable step towards eradicating global poverty. This fight for equality became Melinda's mission. At the onset of her philanthropic journey, she had little idea that the act of uplifting others would also aid her in finding her true self. Are you ready to delve deeper into this unexpected journey? Let's begin. The act of explaining a solution to a problem to individuals is a significant step towards resolving it. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation initially aimed to provide children in developing nations with vaccines. The program proved successful, yet one aspect did not improve as much as the couple had hoped: the survival rate of newborns. They could not understand why this was the case. At this point, Melinda met Hans Rosling, a doctor and author of Factfulness, who proved to be a valuable guide. Working in Mozambique, he and his colleague had accounted for 300,000 patients, providing him with a deep understanding of the situation. He advised the philanthropist to approach the problem from the perspective of those they were aiming to help. The couple then targeted an area where the situation was most dire, Uttar Pradesh in India, and embarked on a project named Saksham. The team discovered that the problem of low survival rate among newborns could be addressed by fostering new habits among parents. Children were suffering because parents were not adhering to some basic practices, such as the use of sterilized tools or keeping newborns warm. Additionally, mothers were subscribing to myths, such as the notion that they should only start breastfeeding after 3 days, providing babies with water instead, which was often contaminated. These misconceptions, deeply rooted in tradition and widely held beliefs, proved to be major obstacles to the adoption of healthier practices. The Saksham team aimed to train health workers to work in remote communities and inspire changes in behavior. However, they faced significant resistance due to a lack of trust. A critical turning point came through the actions of a program participant named Ruchi. She was called to the aid of a family in the middle of the night, finding an unconscious mother and a cold newborn. The family members stood by helplessly, at a loss for what to do. Ruchi attempted traditional methods to raise the baby's temperature, but to no avail. She then suggested that the aunt place the baby against her skin to transfer warmth. The aunt was terrified, believing that the baby, whose skin had turned blue, was possessed by evil spirits. Ruchi took the brave step of placing the baby against her own skin, a decision fraught with risk as the practice was unfamiliar to the community. If she failed, she would likely be blamed for the child's death. Fortunately, the skin-to-skin contact proved successful. When the baby's mother regained consciousness, Ruchi educated her on how to care for the newborn. News of this incident spread rapidly, and Saksham earned the trust of the surrounding communities. Melinda soon realized that saving children required more than medical intervention. On one occasion, she spoke with a mother named Meena who had managed to keep her infant safe thanks to a health program. Although grateful, Meena admitted that her family lacked the resources to raise the child, even suggesting that Melinda take the child with her. Melinda was taken aback by her proposal. The story of Adisa, a 42-year-old woman from Niger, provides another poignant example. She was married at the age of 14 and has been pregnant 10 times. In developing economies, 33% of women are married before the age of 18, while 11% are married before their 15th birthday. Nonprofit organizations are working to combat the issue of child marriages. In countries like India and Ethiopia, for example, girls can use a mobile application to alert a nonprofit organization to impending child marriages. The local police can then intervene to stop these ceremonies. Other projects involve working with remote and impoverished communities, educating parents about the detrimental effects of early marriages, and establishing support groups for girls. Although the prevalence of child marriages has decreased, frequent pregnancies continue to pose a problem due to several factors. These issues include compromising the health of mothers and children, lack of funds for education and sustenance, and the inability of mothers to realize their full potential due to lack of time. As a result, family planning becomes essential. Women are in need of contraceptives, as their husbands often refuse to use condoms. However, funding for these medicines has been significantly reduced since 1994. Listening to the stories of these women, Melinda felt a strong desire to help, but she understood that this would be no easy task. Firstly, some people in the West did not see this as a problem, advocating for abstinence instead. This was not a viable option for many impoverished women who were heavily reliant on the decisions of their husbands. Secondly, family planning is a highly politicized topic, often misconstrued as birth control when, in reality, the aim of the foundation was to empower women with choices, not to impose restrictions on childbearing. Having been raised in a Catholic family, Melinda was well aware of the Church's stance against contraceptives, presenting yet another hurdle. She had always been one to abide by the rules, but this time, she made the decision to publicly advocate for family planning. The foundation co-sponsored a summit in London, providing contraceptives to an additional 120 million women. As a result of her public stance, she was labeled a former Catholic by some social media users, and some religious press claimed she had lost her way. These comments deeply hurt Melinda, revealing the price she had to pay for publicly declaring her position. Recognizing a problem is the first step toward solving it. In the past, tasks such as cooking and cleaning, typically performed by women, were considered natural and thus overlooked. Marilyn Waring, an economist who became a member of New Zealand's parliament at the age of 23, challenged this notion. She calculated that if these tasks were performed by hired workers, they would constitute the largest sector in the global economy. Her research, published in 1988, represented a major breakthrough. The burden of household chores prevents women from realizing their full potential. A paid job not only provides financial independence but also boosts self-confidence. In poorer regions, it also helps a woman earn respect from her husband as her income benefits the whole family. Therefore, another economist, Diane Elson, proposed a framework to alleviate the burden of household tasks. Recognize, governments should gather statistical data on unpaid hours. For instance, in India, the average woman spends 6 hours a day on chores, compared to 1 hour for men. In Norway, the ratio is 3.5 to 3 hours, respectively. Reduce. The introduction of technology can effectively lessen the workload of household chores. Redistribute. To facilitate this transition, various projects around the world have addressed the root of the problem: gender biases. Melinda has supported some of these initiatives and once observed a group discussion in rural Malawi. Community members sat in a circle and discussed their daily tasks. When the women began to describe their responsibilities, the men initially laughed. However, they were soon taken aback by the sheer volume of work that the women carried out. Sometimes women take matters into their own hands. During a visit to Tanzania, Melinda stayed with a couple named Anna and Sanare. When Sanare left for work, Anna shared with Melinda the story of a crisis in her marriage that eventually led to a more equitable division of labor. After giving birth, Anna could no longer fetch water from miles away. She packed her belongings, took her baby, and prepared to return to her village. Sanare, taken aback, offered to take over the task himself. Soon, other men joined him, and eventually, a well was constructed nearby. This story served as a reminder to Melinda of her own journey towards an equal relationship. Initially, she performed the majority of the housework while her husband was constantly at work. Feeling isolated, she eventually stood her ground and began a dialogue about equality. For example, when she expressed her frustration about the hours spent driving their daughter to school, Bill offered to share this responsibility. Other parents noticed, and soon more men started driving their kids to school. Education holds the key to opportunities. During Melinda's stay in Tanzania, Anna's daughter asked to borrow her headlamp so she could study at night. This 13-year-old girl understood that education was a powerful tool to overcome poverty. Indeed, education leads to improved literacy, higher income, and healthier habits. Moreover, it allows children to transform their self-image, the foundation for progress. For instance, many girls from India's former untouchables caste had low self-esteem. They were historically barred from using the same roads as people higher up in the social hierarchy. Despite the caste system being formally abolished, its remnants persist. As a response, Sister Sudha Varghese opened a free boarding school for these girls. At first, the girls were extremely shy, rarely making eye contact. However, as the teachers treated them as equals and educated them about their rights, the girls gained confidence. In addition, Sister Sudha decided to teach them self-defense skills. They excelled at karate to the extent that the school sent them to participate in India's national competition. The girls returned with gold and silver medals. They later won 7 trophies at the World Championships in Japan. The respect they received completely transformed their self-image and instilled in them the ambition to aim high. Despite the benefits of education for both sexes, boys tend to have better access. For example, less than 33% of girls attend secondary school in Chad, compared to over 66% of boys. The reasons vary, with some believing that women do not need education, while others prefer their daughters to stay home and help with household chores. Fortunately, many initiatives are tackling this issue. For example, the Mexican government launched the Oportunidades program and provided financial incentives for parents to send their daughters to school. Over the span of 20 years, the enrollment rates for boys and girls in primary school and college became equal. Now 52 countries look to Mexico as a model and are implementing similar programs. The issue of unequal access to education is not exclusive to developing countries. Melinda fondly recalls how her math teacher, Mrs. Bauer, requested the principal of her all-girls school to purchase 5 computers. She taught herself how to use them at night and passed on this knowledge to her students during the day. Now, Melinda's company, Pivotal Ventures, encourages women to pursue technology-related studies, while the foundation enables low-income Americans to access education. Gender inequality also has a significant impact on agriculture. Another approach to alleviating poverty involves boosting family budgets. To achieve this, the Gates first sought to understand the primary source of income for most low-income individuals. They discovered that 70% of them relied on the yields from their farms. They decided to focus their efforts on agriculture in Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, believing that the introduction of new seed varieties and fertilizers could create a significant impact. However, their perspective changed following a conversation with Catherine Bertini, the executive director of the UN's World Food Program. She highlighted the gender aspect of this issue, informing them that in developing countries, women perform the majority of the work in the fields. This realization raised several questions. Why is it more difficult for women to gain access to credit, land, seeds, and fertilizers? Why is it harder for women to participate in skill-enhancing programs? Why do women face more challenges in discussing and sharing effective practices with other farmers? Why do women struggle to reach new markets? Bertini concluded that in order to increase the yield and income from farming, the foundation needed to first address the repercussions of gender inequality. Statistically, female farmers produce 20 to 30% less yield than their male counterparts. The primary reason for this is the lack of opportunities. Among the first initiatives of the Gates Foundation were educational radio programs in rural Ghana. This medium was accessible to women, allowing them to learn more about harvesting techniques and new plant varieties. Another grant was provided to Project Pradhan in eastern India. The project aimed to organize educational training but first sought to understand the community. They discovered that husbands often physically abused their wives if they left the house without permission. As a result, Pradhan engaged in discussions with the husbands, persuading them to allow their wives to attend the seminars, highlighting the potential benefits for their family budgets. For the first time, these female farmers had a support group. They collectively negotiated with banks, learned about the most effective seeds, and participated in agricultural training. After some time, Melinda visited one of these meetings and witnessed the power of upliftment. In addition to improving their farming practices, the women collaborated to clean water sources and repair roads. They approached the authorities and took steps to reduce alcohol consumption, even pressuring the government to implement stricter laws. They were no longer living in fear. In Melinda Gates' words, women have to lift each other up, not to replace men at the top of the hierarchy, but to become partners with men in ending hierarchy. Equality in the workplace is still a battleground for most women. Women face gender inequality daily at their workplaces. This can be seen in terms of salary disparities and promotional opportunities. For instance, in Hungary, male managers earn 33% more than their female counterparts. Additionally, as the #MeToo movement has highlighted, workplaces often fail to ensure the safety of their employees. Furthermore, the representation of women in key sectors is alarmingly low. For example, women make up only 2% of venture capital partners. What negative implications does this trend have? When entrepreneurs start their businesses, they often lack the necessary funding. Bank loans are often inaccessible for many, making venture capital their primary source of financial support. However, this is a risky endeavor as it is difficult to predict which startup will succeed. As a result, investors tend to fund people they already know, such as former college classmates or colleagues. Imagine if more women were involved in this field. This would open up new opportunities for female entrepreneurs and contribute to greater diversity. A group's collective intelligence is heavily influenced by gender diversity. Teams with at least one woman tend to perform better than all male teams. Even being a co-founder of an organization does not guarantee an equal position within it. Melinda was aware that she would be shouldering most of the work at the foundation, as Bill was occupied with Microsoft. However, she initially chose to work behind the scenes. One of the reasons for this was her desire to protect the privacy of her children. Another was her perfectionism. She feared disappointing others if she was not well prepared. She was used to over-preparing even for business meetings, which made public speaking a daunting task. As a result, Bill was often the sole representative of the foundation. People began to view the organization as Bill's alone, with Melinda's contributions remaining largely invisible. After discussing this with Bill, Melinda decided to seize the opportunity to speak as a co-founder. As expected, she meticulously prepared for her first conference. As she spoke, she surprised both the audience and herself, not only with her knowledge but also with her passion. This marked a turning point in her life. From that point onward, she gradually increased her involvement in writing the foundation's annual letters. Initially, these were written solely by Bill, but in 2013, this began to change. That year, the letter included an essay by Melinda. In 2014, she contributed to a third of the letter, and by 2015, the couple were writing it together. This may seem like a minor detail, but it symbolizes a significant evolution. Notably, only 7 countries worldwide do not offer paid maternity leave. Among these countries are Suriname, Papua New Guinea, and the United States. Melinda Gates has long held a deep-seated desire to alleviate poverty. She recognized that poverty's effects extended beyond malnutrition and disease. It represented a trap that kept people stuck at the survival level. To escape this cycle and begin to utilize their talents, people needed upliftment. But at first, Melinda was unsure as to how to facilitate this. Often, philanthropists approach villages with a sense of self-righteous indignation, advising locals to abandon their harmful practices. However, this approach, driven by anger, can only help a few people. If the aim is to genuinely help, empathy must be the guiding principle. Philanthropists must take the time to listen to locals, understand their needs, and then take action. This was how Melinda discovered the key to uplifting humanity, promoting gender equality worldwide. Most of the Foundation's projects involve engaging in conversations with people and educating them about their rights. Each discussion gradually fosters the adoption of new habits and practices. Therefore, solutions such as developing applications to protect children from child marriages serve as short-term fixes. On the other hand, creating a culture where the community, not the police, steps in to prevent forced marriages represents a long-term goal, one that has already been achieved in some regions. Through her discussions with locals, Melinda unearthed the deep-seated needs of women. This desire to advocate for their rights helped her overcome her fear of putting herself out there. In fighting for equality for others, she brought equality into her own life. Here are some actions you can take. Do not tolerate jokes or other signs of subtle bias towards others. Educate yourself about marginalized groups in your country and discuss this topic with others to dispel myths. Research local initiatives that assist low-income individuals in your area. Consider ways you can contribute to these initiatives.